Hello, Assemblymember Clara. Thank you. Yes. Today we're having a town hall talking about racial justice and poverty. So, what do you see the situation about this racial justice in your area?
Well, we live here in the capital of Silicon Valley. There's a tremendous wealth that's being created, tremendous property values, very profitable corporations. Yet at the same time, we have people living in extreme poverty, or people living 2-3 families to a home. We have families that are struggling to get by. And so when we look at the data, we see there's clearly a racial component to it. So the question is, what do we do to create more equity in a place of abundance?
Actually, just now, Senator Dave Cortese just mentioned about the bill. He's going to help the homeless youth. But you're talking about there are so many wealthy people in the Bay Area, especially the high-tech companies. How do you get them to help?
Well, they should be part of the solution. The reality is that none of those companies, just like none of us as individuals, survive in a vacuum. We all are part of an ecosystem. And the reality is that those companies also are successful because of the ecosystem that's created here, the workers that help to make them profitable. And so there should be a sense of community, a sense of actually giving back to folks in your own backyard. I know these are global companies, but their giving and their thoughtfulness should be to where they are located. And so I think that there's absolutely an opportunity for them to be part of the solution, to come to the table, and to do more, quite frankly. I think all of us need to do more, because in the wealthiest region, in the wealthiest state, in the wealthiest nation on earth, there shouldn't be kids and seniors who are homeless. And we have to come to grasp with that, because we're part of the problem if we're not trying to figure out what a solution can be.
The last question is, as an Asian yourself, you see that Asian, we don't speak out. Mm-hmm. So there are so many Asian people, and how do you help the Asian for their racial justice?
That's a really great point, because every year we do a memorial for all the homeless that have died on the streets of Santa Clara County, and every year as we've been doing that, I see more and more Asians on that list. We'll see Indian Americans, Vietnamese Americans, Chinese Americans that are dying, many of them seniors. And think about that, as Asian Americans, we take pride in taking care of our seniors, yet we're seeing our elderly suffering. And so we cannot just pretend that we are all doing well. We cannot feed into the model minority myth. Instead, we have to be realistic and realize, if we are doing well, what can we do to help others? And if we're struggling, we have to have a comfort level for people to feel embraced by the community, so that they don't suffer in shame and in loneliness and in the shadows. We have to make sure people are comfortable talking about mental health issues, talking about economic issues if they're having a tough time. Sometimes in the Asian American community, we don't give the space for individuals or for families or for small businesses to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Over many years, but in the last couple years in particular, we were both sharing our respective labor committees, the Senate side, the Assembly side, and definitely a lot of what we bring to the legislature is kind of how we've approached our work over many, many years, and it's informed by so many of you on the panel, in the room, in our community, and it's really important for all of us. And by the way, when we're done speaking, I think we're going to shift to that side, because I also want to watch and listen, because this is just as much for us to learn and absorb as it is for everyone in the audience. And by the way, a great turnout for one of the most beautiful Saturdays we've had yet this year. I also want to thank Superintendent Lynch and Metro Ed for giving us this beautiful space. This is already such an important educational facility for our region, and it's great to be a community meeting space to have these important conversations as well. And Professor Meyers-Lipton, as Dave said, has been at the forefront of this work of identifying the tension and the struggles and, frankly, the pain that has been long existing in terms of our economic system in the Valley, but to be able to identify it, to name it, to put real numbers to it, and to put real faces to it, that allows the opportunity to find real solutions. And so that's why I think it's so important, because as Dave said, and I might put some names to it, when you have the Bay Area Council, the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, or Silicon Valley Business Journal hey, let's do an economic summit. What is the state of the valley, the state of California this year? It comes from one angle. We oftentimes say we live in a tale of two valleys, a tale of two cities, where we're the wealthiest region, the wealthiest state, and the wealthiest country on earth. And yet we have homeless, yet we have seniors and young people who are homeless. We have people living 2-3 families in a home. We have small businesses that don't get the attention or the support as the large corporations do. And so when you have these other entities that are looking at the economics of the valley, they're looking at it, okay, well, how are our numbers? How are our stocks doing? How is real estate values? What is our bottom line? And the flip side of that is the struggles that actual families are going through, individuals are going through, small businesses are going through, the struggles of the unhoused, the struggles of young people who are finding it harder and harder to survive in the place that they call home. We have more seniors entering homelessness than we've ever had in the history of our country. It's unconscionable, it's immoral, but the question is, what do we do about it? And, part of the aspect of it being racial justice and poverty is that there's an absolute racial, if you look at the data, there's very much a connection, but you don't necessarily even have to look at the data to understand that the economic systems that we have make it a lot harder for some members of our community, and we need to identify it, name it, and then figure out what to do in terms of policy to heal and frankly to share the wealth. There's no reason why wealth should be hoarded in the way that it is amongst the very, very few wealthy. And that's really what we see happening in our economic system. I think if I asked probably most of you here, you'd probably say it feels like it's getting tougher and tougher to live here. Even if your paycheck may have gone up some, it's not keeping up. And so when we talk about the pain index, it's real pain by real families. The numbers are important, but ultimately underlying it are real people, real families. And it's important for us to be able to have data so that when Dave and I say, hey, we have legislation we want to do, or a budget ask, or we want to work with other electeds or community leaders or organizations on this, it's important to have those numbers, but we can't forget that behind those numbers is real suffering and families that are trying to do the same thing that every other family is trying to do, which is take care of their loved ones, take care of their children, of their parents. I have my dad here with me today who has seen, just like I have being here, kind of this transformation of the valley. But we've also seen an increase in those who are struggling and want to be part of the solution there. So I'm very grateful to all of you for being here, for showing up, and very grateful to Senator Cortese and his team in partnering in making this happen. Because again, this is a conversation that we can have once a year when the pain index is released, but the reality is the value of it is what do we do the rest of the year to actually give actions and power to what we might hear today and what the index says in words. So thank you for being here today, and I'm hopeful and I'm hoping that you'll all be part of this journey towards solutions as well. Thank you.
Also are including those workers, those faces, those folks that really allow the tech companies to be in this community. Thank you.
Hey everyone. Thanks for teeing me up, Maria. I'm Megan Abel. I'm the Senior Director of Advocacy at Tech Equity Collaborative. We are an organization that works to address inequities within tech and hold tech companies accountable for the economic harms that they create. As an organization, we produce original research on the tech industry, and we also engage in policy advocacy and sponsor legislation in the Capitol, and have worked closely with both of our hosts today, Assemblymember Kalra and Senator Cortese, on that front. And one of the reports that we've done is on this phenomenon of contract work within tech. We have a report called the Contract Worker Disparity Project, where we did the first of its kind research into what the status of contract work was within the industry and how this really was impacting workers. And as Maria Noel really teed up for us, the status of the quality of jobs in Silicon Valley is not very good. These companies aren't actually operating with that many fewer workers. What has happened over the last couple of years is that direct workers are being laid off, and those jobs are increasingly getting converted into contract roles.